Adolf Hitler has been the center of endless historical debate. His strategic blunders, his intelligence failures, his catastrophic decisions that cost Germany the war. Yet virtually no attention is given to the Führer's physical collapse, and more specifically, how his crumbling body and chemical dependence warped his ability to command under the crushing stress of total war. In this video, we're diving into the Führer's personal life, from his medical records to the shocking drug cocktails that turned the most powerful man in Europe into a trembling, paranoid wreck, and may have sealed the fate of the Third Reich. So let's get into it. Hitler preached the gospel of physical perfection to millions of ordinary Germans. But what's really shocking is that he didn't even meet his own standards. From the beginning, the myth of Hitler's superhuman strength was just that, a myth. Despite the Nazi regime's obsession with physical fitness, Hitler himself wasn't known for being athletic and did not exercise much. While he later adopted vegetarianism, he had an insatiable sweet tooth and was known to consume multiple cream cakes in one sitting. Despite his healthy outward appearance, his medical history was complicated. Though he survived a gas attack in World War I, he was a lifelong hypochondriac, perpetually anxious about his health and possessed by a deep-seated fear of cancer, the disease that killed his mother. This anxiety manifested in very real physical ailments. By the late 1930s, he was plagued by severe stomach cramps, chronic digestive issues, and a persistent skin rash. These were not the hallmarks of the master race. They were the secret vulnerabilities of a man desperate to project an image of invincibility. His personal health was treated as a state secret, a crack in the foundation of the Nazi ideology he'd built. And it was this desperation to find a cure that led him into the hands of a man who would accelerate his ruin. So with all these neurotic worries, Hitler found a doctor who could cure anything, or so he thought. In 1936, Hitler met a Berlin doctor named Theodor Morell. To many in Hitler's inner circle, including figures like Hermann Göring, Morell was an obvious quack whose medical practices were highly questionable. Göring mockingly nicknamed him the Reich Master of Injections. But to Hitler, Morell was a miracle worker. Hitler's conventional doctors had failed to treat his debilitating stomach cramps. Morell, however, offered a solution, a preparation called Mutaflor, containing a strain of bacteria. Within days, Hitler's symptoms improved. The relief was immediate, the gratitude was absolute. From that moment, Morell became Hitler's shadow. It started innocently enough, an injection here, a vitamin shot there. But Morell understood something crucial about his patient. Hitler craved immediate results, so Morell made sure he delivered them. Every ache, every complaint, every moment of fatigue had an instant pharmaceutical answer. The daily injections became a ritual, then a necessity, then an addiction. Morell's medical diary reveals the escalation. Dozens of different compounds, with some sources listing over 70 separate substances. Harmless glucose gave way to bizarre concoctions of bull testosterone. Vitamin shots evolved into extracts from animal organs. Commercial steroids entered the mix. Each injection promised relief. Each one made Hitler more dependent. Morell wasn't just a doctor, he was a dealer. He preyed on Hitler's hypochondria, turning the Führer's anxiety into profit and power. And Hitler, convinced of Morell's genius, granted him unparalleled access, a fatal mistake that would make the most powerful man in Europe utterly dependent on a man his own generals called a quack. This symbiotic relationship would have catastrophic consequences as the pressures of war began to mount. Because when the stress intensified, Morell's solutions would become far more dangerous. The injections were supposed to make Hitler sharper under pressure. Instead, they set him on a path of self-destruction that no one could, or would, stop. What's even crazier is that no one stepped in to help him. His staff watched in horror from afar. The truth is, the most essential moves in your life are hiding right behind the fire of fear. That uncomfortable choice, it's not just needed, it's required. Because the alternative is absolute self-destruction of a man that many considered a friend. As the war turned against Germany, Hitler's health and his reliance on Morell's cocktails spiraled downward together. The stress of command worsened his ailments, and Morell responded not by scaling back, but by doubling down, introducing ever more potent and dangerous drugs. The list of substances is staggering. To combat fatigue, Morell injected Pervitin, a powerful methamphetamine that kept Hitler alert but increasingly paranoid. For chronic pain and insomnia, he administered Eucodal, a trade name for the highly addictive opioid oxycodone. After the failed assassination attempt in July 1944 left Hitler with punctured eardrums, another doctor, Erwin Giesing, began treating him with topical cocaine for the pain. Morell's diaries and other records suggest Hitler received multiple injections daily, with some accounts mentioning up to 20 a day at certain points. He was given anti-gas pills containing the poison strychnine, which likely caused a bout of jaundice. And here's where the drugs began to really take their toll. You won't believe what happened next. Hitler's personality was changing. His legendary intuition, the gambler's instinct that had brought him to power, was being replaced by rigid, irrational stubbornness. His temper, always volatile, became explosive and unpredictable. His paranoia deepened. Many historians believe that by 1943, Hitler was a full-blown addict, his judgment chemically altered at the very moment Germany needed clear strategic thinking. No one stopped it. No one intervened. His generals noticed. They whispered among themselves about the tremors, the glassy eyes after Morell's visits, the increasingly unhinged orders. But who dares tell a dictator he's an addict? Morell certainly wasn't going to. He'd built his power on Hitler's dependency, and Hitler himself was too far gone to see the trap he'd fallen into. The Fuhrer, the supposed pinnacle of human vitality, was physically crumbling, and the chemical cocktail coursing through his veins was accelerating the collapse. It was a destructive path with only one possible destination, and no one, not his doctors, not his generals, not even Hitler himself, was willing or able to change course. And just like that, Hitler's failing physical body started affecting the Nazi war movement. Hundreds of thousands of men marched into doomed battles and paid the ultimate price. As his body and mind deteriorated, his decision-making grew increasingly erratic, rigid, and disastrous. The Allied D-Day invasion on June 6, 1944, is a prime example. On that critical morning, as thousands of Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, Hitler was asleep, likely under the influence of sedatives. His terrified staff did not dare wake him. When he finally awoke, he dismissed the invasion as a mere diversion. His drug-influenced state and possible cognitive rigidity may have contributed to his inability to grasp the situation's gravity. He refused to release critical panzer divisions held in reserve, a delay that proved fatal for the German defense. His inflexibility, a known personality trait, now likely amplified by his health issues and drug use, became military policy. He famously ordered his armies to hold untenable positions, forbidding any retreat. This stand-fast order was a crucial factor in the annihilation of the entire Sixth Army at Stalingrad, a turning point on the Eastern Front. His generals pleaded for tactical withdrawals, but Hitler, isolated and pumped full of stimulants and opiates, refused to listen, often flying into paranoid rages. Chronic amphetamine use is known to cause paranoia and disorganized thought. Hitler was exhibiting these traits. He was no longer leading with strategy, but with a combination of blind faith and drug-fueled delusion, making decisions that were increasingly disconnected from reality. By 1945, everyone knew the Reich was finished, but no one was prepared for what Hitler himself had become. With Soviet artillery shelling Berlin, the man huddled in the Fuhrer bunker was a ghost of his former self. Eyewitnesses described a human wreck. At 56, many accounts say he looked decades older. Those who saw him in his final days painted a grim picture. He was severely stooped, and the tremor that had started in his hand now affected his entire left side. He shuffled when he walked. His once immaculate uniforms were often stained with food he could no longer guide to his mouth with his shaking hands. Saliva sometimes dripped from the corners of his mouth. His mental state was equally shattered. He spent his days lurching between moments of hollow despair and furious, irrational outbursts, ordering non-existent armies to mount impossible counterattacks. His trust in those around him evaporated. In his final days, he even accused Morell of trying to poison him and dismissed him from the bunker. The man who had promised a 1,000-year Reich was reduced to a trembling paranoid addict, trapped in a concrete tomb of his own making. The physical collapse was complete. a horrifying metaphor for the moral and military collapse of his regime. Hitler's illnesses do not absolve him of his crimes. His violent genocidal ideology was the root cause of World War II and the Holocaust. His core personality flaws, his narcissism, his inability to accept blame, and his deep-seated hatred all preceded any diagnosis of Parkinson's or his dependence on drugs. However, the evidence is compelling that his failing body became a significant factor in Germany's defeat. Hitler's physical collapse accelerated Germany's defeat, but he wasn't alone in destroying the Reich from within. If you think one drug-addled dictator was catastrophic, wait until you see the gallery of incompetence surrounding him. From Göring's rage-fueled blunder that lost the Battle of Britain, to the diplomat whose arrogance accidentally armed Stalin, to the two generals whose cowardice sacrificed an entire army at Stalingrad, the Third Reich was doomed by its own leadership long before the Allies won. Check out our video on screen now, The Most Incompetent Nazi Leaders of All Time, where we rank the 5 most catastrophic decisions that guaranteed Germany's defeat. You won't believe how spectacularly these men destroyed their own empire.